Here's a psychological truth most people won't tell you. You're not addicted to her. You're addicted to the version of yourself she lets you be. And until you understand that distinction, you will keep choosing the same person in a different body. And I know what some of you are thinking. No, I just loved the wrong person. But that's the surface answer. The real psychology behind toxic relationships runs so much deeper than a bad taste in partners. It goes all the way back to the first relationship you ever had, the one you didn't choose. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why your brain keeps pulling you toward the same kind of pain, and more importantly, how to finally override that program. Let me ask you something. Think about every toxic relationship you've been in. Different person, right? Different name, different face. But if you're honest, the dynamic was identical. The highs were identical, and the crash was identical. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. And patterns don't come from nowhere. They're installed. Most guys in their late 20s and 30s who find themselves stuck in toxic relationship cycles aren't weak. They're not codependent in the way pop psychology throws that word around. What they actually are is loyal to a version of love that was coded into them before they were old enough to question it. This is the psychology of toxic relationships that no one explains to you. So let's break it down. Chapter 1, the familiar over the healthy. This is where most self-help gets it wrong. People say, just raise your standards. But your nervous system doesn't operate on standards. It operates on familiarity. There's a concept in psychology called repetition compulsion, the unconscious drive to recreate unresolved emotional experiences. Your brain doesn't seek what's good for you. It seeks what it recognizes. So if you grew up in a home where love was conditional, where affection was a reward for performance, then a partner who's emotionally inconsistent doesn't feel wrong to your nervous system. It feels like home. And that's the trap. You're not choosing toxic, you're choosing familiar. Your brain has confused recognition with safety. And until you can separate those two things, no amount of knowing better changes the behavior. This is the first psychological truth. You can't think your way out of a pattern your body is running. Chapter 2, trauma bonding and the dopamine trap. Now here's where it gets biological. You've probably heard the term trauma bonding, but most people misunderstand what it actually means. It's not just bonding through trauma, it's a neurochemical hijack. In a toxic relationship, the cycle of intensity, the highs, the lows, the chaos, followed by reconciliation, creates an intermittent reinforcement loop. It's the same mechanism behind gambling addiction. You don't get the dopamine hit from consistency. You get it from unpredictability. So when she pulls away and then comes back, that flood of relief you feel, that's not love. That's your dopamine system lighting up because the uncertainty just resolved temporarily. And here's the part that hits hardest for men specifically. We're socialized to fix, to endure, to stay, because leaving feels like failure. So you layer a trauma bond with a masculine identity that says, I don't quit. And now you're chemically addicted and morally committed to something that's destroying you. That's not strength. That's a cage built from two different materials, biology and identity. And you need to dismantle both. Chapter 3, the identity piece. Remember what I said at the top. You're addicted to the version of yourself she lets you be. Let me explain what that means. In toxic relationships, there's usually a role you play. The rescuer, the fixer, the one who sees her potential, and the role gives you something. It gives you purpose. It gives you a sense of being needed. And for a lot of men who never felt seen in their childhood, being needed becomes the closest thing to being loved. So when someone tells you to leave, they're not just asking you to leave a person. They're asking you to leave the only identity that makes you feel valuable. That's why it feels like you're losing yourself when the relationship ends. Because in a very real psychological sense, you are. This is shadow integration. The part of you that needs to be needed is your shadow. It's not a flaw, it's a survival adaptation, but it's running the show from a place you can't see. And it will keep choosing partners who activate that role until you bring it into the light. If this is resonating with you, do me a favor. Please drop a comment below and tell me which pattern you recognize in yourself: the familiarity trap, the dopamine cycle, or the identity piece. I read every comment, and your answer helps me create content that goes deeper on what you actually need. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. This channel exists to give you the psychological truths that actually set you free. Breaking the program. So how do you break a pattern that's running at the level of your nervous system, your neurochemistry, and your identity? You don't do it with willpower. You do it with awareness and then with replacement. So step 1, name the pattern, not "she was toxic." Name your pattern. I choose partners who are emotionally inconsistent because inconsistency feels familiar to my nervous system. When you can say that sentence, you've already broken the unconscious loop. Step 2, feel the withdrawal. When you leave or set a boundary and your body screams at you to go back, recognize that for what it is. It's not love pulling you back. It's a trauma bond. It's a dopamine withdrawal. Let it move through you. It peaks and it passes. Step 3, redefine what you're loyal to. You've been loyal to a version of yourself that exists only inside dysfunction. Build a new version, one that doesn't need to rescue anyone to feel worthy, one whose value isn't contingent on being someone's savior. This is your sovereignty, not the absence of pain, but the refusal to let an old program dictate your future. That's the psychological truth. If you recognized yourself in this video, watch this next one.